There's a moment you've experienced more times than you've ever admitted. A younger woman looks at you, not for too long, not in an obvious way, just long enough. And then she smiles. It's brief, controlled, almost easy to ignore, but you feel it, and just as quickly as it happens, you dismiss it. She's just being polite. She smiles like that with everyone. It doesn't mean anything. And you move on, not because the moment had no meaning, but because you've trained yourself not to trust what you felt. Men don't talk about these moments, not because they don't happen, but because they no longer trust their own perception. And that doubt didn't come from nowhere. It was built over time, quietly, repeatedly, through messages you absorbed without even realizing it. That attraction has an expiration date. That interest belongs to the young. That if a younger woman notices you, it must be accidental, harmless, meaningless. So eventually you adapted. You trained yourself to look away from the signal before it even had a chance to fully land. But here's the truth most men are never told clearly. That smile wasn't random, it wasn't accidental, and it wasn't loud, because it didn't need to be. Human behavior rarely announces itself. It reveals itself quietly, and then waits to see who notices. And the men who miss these moments, they're not weak, they were simply never shown the full picture. So let's slow this down. When a younger woman smiles at you, your first instinct is to downplay it. Because somewhere along the way you learnt that attraction requires effort. That you have to perform, impress, prove, that you have to earn attention. That's how younger men operate. They try to be seen. They adjust themselves constantly. They scan the room for approval. But what you don't realize is that what you've stopped doing is exactly what's being noticed. You're not chasing attention anymore. You're not trying to fit expectations. You're not seeking validation. You're simply present. And that's where everything changes. Because real confidence isn't something you show, it's something people feel when you're no longer trying to control how they respond to you. You stand differently, you move differently, there's no rush in you. And when that younger woman smiles at you, in a coffee shop, a hallway, a passing moment, it's often because her body responded before her mind even understood why. She didn't decide to smile, she reacted. And this is where most explanations fall short. People say confidence is attractive, and stop there. But that's not the full truth. What she's responding to is something deeper. Containment. A man who no longer seeks validation carries a quiet weight. Not heaviness, but presence. A sense that nothing needs to be proven in that moment. And in a world filled with noise, that stands out immediately. Because younger men are still searching for themselves. They're reactive, overexpressive, constantly checking how they're being perceived. You're not. And that difference creates contrast. That smile? It's her noticing that contrast without needing to explain it. But there's more. That smile isn't just about attraction. It's also about safety, not dramatic safety, subtle safety, emotional ease, groundedness, predictability. When a man isn't trying to control the interaction, isn't trying to win the moment, isn't trying to prove himself, he feels stable. And stability does something powerful. It doesn't just attract. It relaxes. She doesn't feel pressure. She doesn't feel evaluated. She doesn't feel like she has to perform. For a brief second, she can just be. And that's rare, so the smile becomes a natural response to that feeling. But here's where most men misunderstand. You think that smile must mean one of two things, interest or politeness. But that's not true. Sometimes the smile is neither. Sometimes it's a question, unspoken. Who are you? Are you really as calm as you seem? And in that moment, a quiet test begins. Not consciously, but instinctively. If you flinch, if you look away too quickly, if you shrink or overreact, the moment closes. Not because you failed, but because the signal was interrupted. Men who react, chase. Men who observe, allow. And allowing is where quiet power exists. But we still haven't reached the deepest layer. Because the real reason younger women smile at older men is not admiration, it's recognition. Recognition is silent. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't announce itself. It simply appears. When she smiles, she's not responding to your age, or your status, or even your looks. She's responding to something internal. Resolution. A man who has lived enough to settle within himself carries something unmistakable. A sense of completion. Decisions already made, values already chosen, internal conflicts already faced. You're no longer negotiating with yourself, and that changes how people experience you. But here's the problem. Most men don't realize this shift has already happened inside them. You still remember a time when attention had to be earned, when being noticed required effort. So when attention appears now, without effort, you mistrust it. You think, that can't be real. But that thought isn't humility. It's outdated identity. You're still seeing yourself as someone who has to prove his place, when in reality, you already have it. That smile is often a quiet acknowledgement of something else, authority. Not dominance, not control, but presence without explanation. The kind that doesn't need to justify itself. And in a world full of emotional chaos, that presence stands out. Because many younger women are surrounded by instability, overexposure, reactivity, men who speak too much about who they are before they've actually become it. And then they encounter you, calm, unhurried, contained, not chasing, not avoiding, just there, and that difference creates a pause, and inside that pause is where the smile happens. But there's one more layer. Sometimes she smiles because you are unpressured. There's no urgency in you, no hidden agenda, no emotional demand. You're not trying to take anything from the moment, and that is rare, because people relax around those who don't need something from them. You don't create tension, you don't shift the emotional atmosphere, you allow it, and that feeling stays. This is where many men break the moment. They rush to define it. What did that mean? Should I act? Should I ignore it? But the moment wasn't asking for action, it was asking for presence. And men who understand this don't rush, they let it breathe, because attraction doesn't grow under pressure. It grows in space. Now think about experience, not the kind you talk about, the kind you carry. Younger men live in anticipation, older men live in understanding. You've seen patterns, you've seen outcomes, you know where effort matters and where it doesn't. And that awareness softens you, it removes desperation, and when she smiles, part of what she feels isn't just attraction. It's curiosity. What does it feel like to be like that? How did he become this way? She may never think those words consciously, but her body senses it. That smile becomes something subtle, a probe, not a promise, not even necessarily flirtation, just a quiet test of presence. If you remain steady, you pass without trying. If you overreact or withdraw, the moment disappears. And finally, there's a truth many men don't want to accept. Sometimes she smiles simply because she can around you. No pressure, no expectations, no performance, just a brief human connection. And that kind of freedom is rare. That's why the smile lingers just long enough to be felt, but not explained. And sometimes it really is what it seems, attraction, quiet, unspoken, but real. And once you understand that, you stop questioning yourself. You stop doubting your place, you stop shrinking, and without even trying, you begin to move differently. And people feel that, before you ever say a word.